Hi, this is the ATS Heart Check Protocol, and I'm Erica Bulmer. We're going to start out with our first imaging view, which is the parasternal long axis. So for our imaging protocol, we have your normal imaging parameters. We'd like to see your walls perpendicular, interventricular septum, and posterior wall clearly seen, as well as the aortic valve and mitral valve. Now for our depth settings, we would like you to keep your depth decreased so that your region of interest is filling the screen. There are some imaging settings that can improve this picture. I can adjust the frequency or the gain. So we operate on 3-beat retro loops. So you're going to watch 3 nice clear beats go by. 1, 2, 3, and then you will hit store. Try to find a better picture here. 1, 2, 3. And once you hit store, it's going to play back an image loop for you. If you do not like the loop, you can hit freeze to redo the loop. So that's my loop it's replaying, and I like that one. So now to keep it, I'm going to hit store again. So our first image is just a nice parasternal long axis view. Next, I'm going to turn on M mode, and we're going to obtain a T-Colts measurement for ejection fraction and wall thickness. So again, nice perpendicular walls. I'd like you to set your M mode just beyond the mitral leaflet tips and as perpendicular to the walls as you can find. Once you have that clip, we store one for the cardiologist in case he'd like to measure it himself, and then I'd like you to do a T-Colts measurement as well as wall thickness. So we're going to start out in diastole, so right on your QRS, leading to leading, the interventricular diastolic dimension, and then the posterior wall, and then your systolic dimension. We have a calc package saved in the machine that will automatically give the physician everything that he's wanting here. The set button will set your calipers purple. Once everything is purple, then you are able to store your image and everything will be in your calc package. The next is going to be another M mode measurement. This one is going to be over your aorta and left atrial dimension. So you're going to set your M mode caliper approximately at the aortic root. Hit measure to select your calc package. We have an LAAO option here. Measure your aortic root at the QRS, inner to inner. Hit set to turn it purple. And then you'll move to your left atrial dimension, which is also inner to inner. Once they've turned purple, we can store, and those are in our measurement package. The next measurement from this parasternal long axis view is going to be your LVOT diameter. Getting a little lung interference here, just working around it. It's going to increase my width a little bit. So for this measurement, we would like you to try to be able to see the annular insertions of the LVOT. And you're going to measure on top of the annular insertion points. So under dimension, LVOT diameter, in mid-systole, so aortic valve leaflets are open, and you're going to place your caliper right on top of those insertion points. You also want to stay perpendicular to your valve plane. The next measurement is going to be your aorta in diastole at the root. So we're going to be measuring leading to leading at the sinus of Valsalva. Ideally, we'd like to be able to see some of the aortic root up here in these photos, but again, imaging limitations may not allow that. If you do detect some aortic dilatation at this point, it would be good to go ahead and do a 4-point aortic measurement if you're able to obtain it, or at least provide a clip of the ascending aorta. So we're going to go leading to leading. Next, we're going to place color flow over the two valves. Here we can also investigate for any kind of peri or supramembranous VSDs closer to the aorta. We would like your color flow to have as much fill as possible without being speckly or flashy. So you want to increase your gain just below speckle. And again, you're going to just watch 3 beats go by and then hit store. Approve your loop and hit store again. All right, our next view is going to be from the parasternal short axis view. And we're going to be investigating from the apex to the base of the left ventricle. Here we're going to be just looking at form, function, the mitral valve, as well as looking for VSD. So I like to start near the apex, turn on color flow over that interventricular septum, make sure you're including most of the LV here. And then I'm going to put this on a split screen so I can have my 2D and color flow all in the same view here. And then I'm going to do a 3-beat sweep up towards the base of the heart. So 1, 2, 3. I usually end up having to do 2 of these to make it all the way to the base. So I kind of start mid-ventricle now. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to redo that one because my depth was off just a little bit there. So let's move our color box down just a little bit. 1, 2, 3. Our next view is going to be the parasternal short axis at the level of the aorta and left atrium. So in this view, we can see tricuspid valve, we can see pulmonic valve, aortic valve, left atrium, and interatrial septum. In this first shot, I would like you to make sure that you have a 3-leaflet aortic valve. If you are having a hard time deciphering that, or if you are sure there's a bicuspid, then we would go ahead and perform an M mode on the valve. But otherwise, just get a good picture of 3-leaflet valve there. Next, you're going to place a color box over the entire region of interest here. So we're including pulmonic valve, interatrial septal area, and aortic valve here. You're going to obtain a 3D loop. Now we're going to do a focused, zoomed view of our interatrial septum to look for any kind of PFO or ASD. I find that this angle is a really nice angle to catch some of our PFOs. So I'm just going to use my zoom box to focus down on this wall here, turn on color flow, and decrease my sector size to improve my frame rate here. And if my color is too flashy, I can up or down the scale here and adjust the gain. And I'm going to go to simultaneous so we get a 2D and a color flow shot here. And I just kind of watch and sweep through and make sure I'm not catching any shunt flow here. Once I am happy that I've looked, I'm going to go ahead and get a 3-beat loop here. The next view is our view of the coronary artery takeoffs. Now, or origins. These can be tricky. The best thing I can tell you as tips for getting these views is that They should be coming off of the aorta at approximately 10 o'clock and 4 o'clock. I'm going to zoom on this view just a little bit here. And careful sweeping superior and inferior will kind of help you find them. Right now, I am currently seeing the left coronary artery down here at about 4 o'clock. I'm going to obtain a 3-beat loop, just kind of showing that. And then I'm also going to take a frozen loop or clip of this area here. And you can see it coming off right here. I'm going to use an arrow or a label just to point it out. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the right. The right coronary artery is a little bit more difficult to obtain. There is a pericardial fold just superior to this that occasionally will look like the artery. So you need to take care and be careful to make sure that what you're seeing connects back to your aorta. I'm pulling to the right of his chest a little bit, coming a little more superior. And then sweeping down a little bit until I can kind of find that origin there. If you kind of see it coming in and out, but you can't isolate it, it is okay to have them maybe pause their breath a little bit. Use your gains to darken a little bit. Pause your breath right there for me. And breathe. See it coming off right here. It's pretty simple. Okay. Once I'm satisfied with those, it's time to move on to apicals. So for our apical views, we're going to look at the apical four-chamber to start. I'm going to bring you towards me just a little bit, Jordan. So depth settings, just make sure that your apical 4 is filling the screen, that you can still see the pulmonary vein entrance here. And then you're going to just try to get a nice smooth 3-beat loop of your apical 4 chamber, showing form, function, ejection fraction, valves, and the septums here. Just pause your breath right there. And breathe. So as I'm in this apical 4 chamber, I am doing my segmental approach to heart disease. I am going through making sure that I eyeball each septum, each valve, look at the valve positions. You want to make sure that your tricuspid valve position is just below mitral so you don't have an Epstein's anomaly. I compare chamber sizes to each other. Right should be slightly smaller than left, as well as atrias. And just look for any other possible abnormality that's there, as well as wall thickening for hypertrophic heart. So make sure you are scanning your picture quite quickly, but quick scan here. I'm going to turn on color flow. I want your color pie to cover all 4 chambers of the heart as well as both septums. Pause your breath for me. And I obtain a 3-beat. If you see tricuspid regurgitation, you do not need to sample it with Doppler unless it is greater than mild. So a pretty significant looking jet, go ahead and sample it and measure your tricuspid regurgitation and keep the solid velocity. Otherwise, if it's just a trace amount, don't worry about sampling it. Next, we're going to pulse our mitral valve inflow. For Doppler studies, I like you to use the 2/3 rule, filling about 2/3 of your Doppler screen here. and you're just going to obtain approximately 3 beats across there and store it. We do not need to measure the velocities. Next, we're going to do an apical 5-chamber view. Here we want to make sure that we can kind of see the interventricular septum as it relates to the aortic opening and the mitral valve. This is where we will be looking for any evidence of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. Now you can deviate from this protocol anytime you feel like you are seeing something that needs further investigation. But I do ask that you do obtain each protocol picture on every scan. Typically, if there is some abnormality, the physician should be able to see it from this list of pictures we have here. Pause your breath right there. Just breathe. Next, I'm going to put color flow over that 5-chamber view. I'm going to obtain a pulse wave signal of the LVOT now. Pause your breath. Adjust scale as needed. Breathe. And blow all your air out. Pause right here. Once you've obtained that, we're going to measure the peak systolic velocity. And then we're going to obtain a continuous wave velocity through the aortic valve. Pause right here. If you see any evidence of a hypertrophic heart, so if your LVOT velocity looks like there is any dagger shape or you're seeing any wall thickening in there, it would be good to obtain a continuous wave of the aortic valve with Valsalva maneuver, just to see if that velocity increases. You could also obtain M mode of aortic valve to see if there's any early valve closure. In your mitral valves, you can look for mitral valve prolapse if you're seeing mitral regurgitation. All right, our last picture is of the suprasternal notch. I'm going to have you lay flat on your back, please. You can bring your arm down to your side under this wire here. There we go. I'll have you tip your chin way up. Here we're going to be looking for aortic coarctation. So you just want to get a nice view of that aortic arch. We're going to place color over it. I usually like to increase my scale a little bit just to help with that not looking like it's aliasing there. I'm going to turn on my simultaneous mode here. Pause your breath. And breathe. So I obtain a color flow image with the 2D next to it. Next I'm going to pulse wave just below our left subclavian artery here. I'm just going to obtain that Doppler screen here. If I see velocities that are getting greater than 2, then I would ask that you plug a CW in there, as well as do some investigation with color flow pictures to show where there might be a narrowing in that aorta. And that is the imaging protocol for ATS. Well, all right, I know. Survived.
It's a little hard to find.
Everything
Yeah, just come around that side door.
All right.
Done?
Did a good job. Sorry.